Hello, welcome to Working Dragon Mystic, where we discuss real, metaphysical, and occult topics so that you can manifest real and tangible results and change in your life. This week, we're going to be discussing a topic that I've been getting a lot of emails and questions about, and that is Rogue Dragons. All right. Now, before we get into this, I want you all to remember we do have a full online school with full video courses, path workings, and the like. You can find that over at workingdragonmystic.com. It has access to the school, the classes, as well as you can even get to the YouTube channel from there, and our merch store. We do actually have some Working Dragon Mystic merch, including, of course, coffee cups. I'm going to be selling coffee cups. We drink coffee all the time here at Working Dragon Mystic. Working Dragon Mystic brought to you by coffee. What can I say? That you'll find a lot of like Dragon's Eye seal, wall hangings, tapestry, the nice altar cloths that we do have, coffee cups, even stickers, which are really great to put inside your journals if you want the Dragon's Eye seal in your journal. We even have actually some artwork of some of the draconic rulers, the Dragon's Eye seal, and the artistic Dragon's Eye seal. And I want to say we have a pint glass too. I think we do. Yeah, we do. Okay. So anyway, go check it out over there. We got a lot of cool stuff over there, including t-shirts even. So now, with that said, let's get into this a little. So Rogue Dragons, what the hey are they? Why have I been hearing about them? And why haven't I mentioned them? Well, Rogue Dragons are a thing. It is a term that is used, and it is used by the dragons. I know that seems a little odd considering how dragons are. But we do have to remember the dragons do have their own rules and laws in which they expect all dragons to abide by. And to some extent, not fully, but to some extent, they expect those who work with them to abide by. Now, I'm hoping to do a video on those ideals and rules or whatever as far as the dragons are concerned with us. No human knows all their rules and regulations that they hold themselves to, because to be honest with you, it doesn't concern us. So only certain things that they have allowed us to know or that does concern us are the things we work with. So that's that. Now, there are different varieties and different levels of, breaking those laws, but dragon punishment for dragons is harsh. There's no way around that. Let's be clear. They are very harsh. Now, a rogue dragon, is this just a dragon that broke some of the rules? No, actually, it's not. There's plenty of rules that can be broken, and they can get in varying degrees of trouble, all of which are very, very harsh. There's a few dragons that have actually made the comment, the most common punishment handed out is a death sentence. So take that for what it is. Now, but rogue dragons, to be termed a rogue dragon is the absolute worst thing any dragon could ever receive, because it's not just a breaking a law, it's going against their very being, their very nature. It corrupts them at a level that destroys them, quite literally. And a rogue dragon is literally a dragon who has decided to work directly against the balance. Okay. We know that the multiversal balance is the reason for dragons. It's what they do. They constantly work to maintain that multiversal balance in all things they do. And though it is a dynamic and a very complex balance, to be sure, rogue dragons seek to destroy it. And destroying it is something that could actually spin the multiverse out of control and essentially bring about its end, if you will. Now, in Conway's books, she wrote about rogue dragons. And she also wrote about an entity that she really didn't describe. It's formless, it's whatnot. And she just referred to it, I think, as the destroyer. And that's a topic for another day, but she did relate that to rogue dragons. Its connection with rogue dragons at this time, I have been unable to directly confirm. But that is something I am still looking into deeper, because every time I go into it, the dragons are very, very vague. the best I could say at this point is there's something out there. There is something out there. Maybe Conway's just utilizing the term they use. Maybe she's trying to do the best she could. I don't know, but it's out there. Now, when it comes to Rogue Dragons, though, she touched on them a little, flipped by and everything, but she actually kind of fluffed them a little. She made them seem a lot more pleasant than they are. And if you ever read Conway's books, they don't seem very pleasant in her books at all. Well, one of the first things is once a dragon decides to break out and literally seek to go against the balance, to undo the balance, and they become a true enemy of the multiverse and the multiversal balance, they start to decay at a very, very, very rapid rate. Okay. As I mentioned a few times on this channel and in an interview I did with Legion of Lilith, when a dragon becomes a rogue dragon, they lose massive amounts of their power almost immediately. Like, for example, within the first 48 hours, the unique ability that dragons have to just full on ignore energy disappears. They lose that. So they can be affected by energy just as anyone else or any other entity, and they can't choose to ignore it no more. That is a massive downgrade. From there, they continue to deteriorate, constantly wasting away, deteriorating, withering away. Literally, their life's essence just begins to bleed out to the point where they become less than a husk. Okay. And there's really nothing they can do to stop this deterioration. Why would a dragon choose this? That's one of the great mysteries itself. And sitting and talking with the rulers and other dragons, every grouping of entities in the multiverse seems to have the outlier who goes against their purpose or challenges the status quo. And sometimes, in most entities, it's not that big of a deal, but in some, going against that, it's so ingrained into their being and what they are that it does actually affect them physically and mentally, and it begins to destroy them. In the case of a rogue dragon, this is going to happen. This decay is going to happen very rapidly to a dragon. Now, depending on the age category of the dragon when it goes rogue, this decay can take, and this is the part that I kind of found a little interesting, anywhere from a week to a human to up to about 10 years as a human. That has got to be insane, because that's like nothing. That's like less than a blink of an eye to a dragon. So to them, this deterioration happens massively quick. And we know that they lose a massive chunk of who they are within the first 48 hours, just because of that, losing that unique ability to ignore energy. And the more and more they deteriorate, the more and more feral is the word. Feral they become. They will begin to attack at random for no reason, unprovoked, and they just continue down this feral path. Now, I do remember talking with one of the rulers, and they said that the oldest surviving rogue dragon actually did make it to 100 human years. Still, blink of an eye to a dragon. But that is pretty big chunk above that 10 also. And that grabbed my interest. And I was like, well, if it's, we're talking about 100 years. And I went on to find that the older the dragon is when it goes rogue, the more it has to deteriorate. Not the slower it deteriorates, the more it has to deteriorate. Therefore, it will go longer. So that dragon would have had to have been a relatively old dragon, and a very old one at that, from what they were saying. We are talking ancient, but you had that 100 years. Now, with that said, rogue dragons because they become so feral, because they become so violent, because they become so destructive, because they are literally out there seeking to undo what is known as the balance, there are entire flights of dragons that are actually charged with hunting these things down and eliminating them. Now, in Conway's book, she mentioned kind of a prison for them where they can be rehabilitated, right? And that sounds nice. That sounds nice. That does. It sounds nice. It's like, let's round them up, let's drag them on in here, and let's get them back on page with, working with the balance, help them out, get them healed up, get them right, get them a little workout program going, get them healthy. That's what I was expecting when I first got into this topic. I got a little bit of a heartbreak on this one. No rogue dragon is ever captured and taken to a facility like that. They're not. They're too dangerous, and the decay cannot be undone. It's irreversible decay. This means that the dragons have only one option to them, and it is an option they actually view. They hate it. They don't like it. They don't like it either. And that's to put the rogue dragon down. You heard me. Put them down. So ultimately, anytime a dragon goes rogue, regardless of age, these flights, whose entire jobs is to essentially hunt down and police rogue dragon activity, anytime they're encountered, their job is to eliminate it with extreme prejudice. We're talking extermination here, okay? Let's be honest. I'm trying to say it nicely here on the YouTube. But as sad as this was, and I mean, my co-mage literally just like, it may still be coming through here in the video, I think, because I know I'm feeling, I'm trying to not show it, but he saw that my displeasure that this was the only solution. Now, I have a logical understanding of why this is the only solution. I get it, the logistics, I understand. I'm not even going to question it on the logistics. But my heart, my love of dragons, that emotional side, that got to me. That did. And it was at that point, the particular dragon I was working with, which those of you in 102 have met her. I won't share her name here. I don't know that I'm allowed to, but she looked at me and she's like, this is not the end. And she took me and introduced me to another dragon. And then the two of them took me to an area in the underworld of the draconic realms. This realm actually reminded me very much of Helheim, which I was to later find out you can access it via Helheim, as long as you know how to access it. Hell herself can't open the door for you, but it can be accessed there. If that makes, I know that doesn't make sense because that seems weird that Hell herself couldn't access it. But anyway, moving on. So in here, there is a section of this realm that is a structure. It's several structures, but the main structure is an area in which any rogue dragon who dies before its corruption destroys it goes. And their soul or their being, their essence, however you want to say it in your particular viewpoint, goes there. This is their afterlife. But it is not a facility of punishment. It's actually a rehabilitation facility. And I think this is actually the facility that DJ Conway was talking about. I think she just left out the sadder details. I really do. I think she just left them out. Because in a lot of ways, it reminds me of that facility. Now, the whole time they're here, they're held here. This is where they stay. That's it. You're going to stay here. but they do work on getting them back, rehabilitating them, getting them healthy, finding out what went wrong, those kinds of things, and getting a dragon who is once again dedicated to the balance. And one of the other structures there is essentially it's this really cool like stone monolithic structure thing, where the dragon will be taken and it is judged energetically. There are several other dragons there, including all 9 of the draconic rulers will show up at this particular event, and will actually determine whether or not this draconic spirit soul has indeed once again reaffirmed its commitment to the multiversal balance. Cool. If that's the case, that dragon is allowed to reincarnate. Moving on, back into the fold it goes, back into the families, back into the, all that, back into the draconic realm, back to doing the good work of the multiversal balance. That's a happy story. And I was like, and I remember asking specifically if rehabilitation at this point is possible. Why isn't it possible at the other stages? Because you have all that point until decay. And then why not just do everything you can, and then when they decay, then they continue that process here, right? That's what I'm thinking. And every dragon I was talking to at that moment just got the saddest, I mean, just saddest look on their face. And they made it very, they didn't mince words. They said any dragon that dies to the decay, to the wasting of being outside the balance, when they die, they suffer true soul death and are eliminated from existence for eternity. Suddenly, the procedure made a lot more sense to me, because that in the eyes of the dragons, that is the worst thing they could possibly allow happen to one of their own. It's gone. It ceases to exist. It ceases to be. And that is truly one of the saddest things ever. So that's another reason they're so proactive in getting out there and doing what they do, because if they can stop the rogue dragon and get it to the underworld, there they can preserve the soul. There they can begin to rehabilitate it. There they can begin to help it. There they can begin to have those long time consuming conversations. But till that moment, they are on the clock, and the clock is the ultimate and absolute end. And it is the most tragic event within draconic society, in fact, is what they're racing. That's pretty crazy to me. And now, this said, somebody's going to be like, Drake, why haven't you shared this with us before? I'll be honest. To me, this is hard to share. It's a very, very emotional, sad thing. And I don't think there's any way to truly communicate the depths of how sad this is, of what I saw, of what was there, and the emotional weight that these dragons carry. I've seen a lot of edgelord slapstick magicians who go on, tout about running around, slaying rogue dragons. Oh, it's so much fun. We go out, we slash them. I got this magical astral sword, and me and my dragon, we go and we're slaying them together. And it's a great time. Anytime you hear a magician talking like that, you can be dead certain that magician has no concept of what they're talking about. And they obviously must not be working very closely with dragons, because that right there would be an insult to every dragon amongst dragonkind, period. Because you are talking about making fun, making sport, making a hobby of one of the most tragic, sad things of their kind. And I will admit, whether it be in different communities where I've heard this pop up or in some voice chats, anytime it's popped up, most people will notice I get pretty quiet. But first off, it shows how video game mentality and how childish some of these people are and how they're spouting their ego and they just want to look cool. But it also does show that they're probably not working very closely with these entities at all. And if they are, these entities are not going to be very happy with them. And they're going to look at them like some spoiled little child screaming. Like imagine the little brats from Willy Wonka. That's probably what the dragons are seeing this mage at best. I guarantee you their opinion's probably far lower. But is what it is, I suppose. And this is a hard thing for me to talk about. And I'll admit, I've always worried that doing a video on these rogue dragons might actually encourage that behavior. Which, usually I try to, sidestep, you do what you do you and I do me and we don't care. However, when it comes to these rogue dragons and that kind of behavior I just talked about, that one I'm not going to let go. That one I'm not going to let go. That one I'm not going to overlook. Because the dragons have done too much for far too many people and myself to just ignore that insult, to ignore that amount of disrespect, to ignore that much callous ignorance when it comes to how tragic the concept of a rogue dragon is and what it means to the dragons themselves. Like I've actually heard people say that it seems mean and cruel to put them down as it was. And I get that. I get that. Believe me, remember I said, it was tearing me apart when I was hearing about it. But at the same time, once you see the full picture, once you know the rest of the story, and you understand that that is the only way to truly be sure you can save them. Well, now, that's like putting someone under surgery to remove a tumor. That's a much different story. That is a much different story. And I do understand that. It's still a tragedy. It's still a tragedy to see. It's still a tragedy to understand that this happens. And it's to watch it, to see the decay of these dragons. I can't even begin to put it in words. I will admit I sat here for several hours with a pen and paper trying to figure out how I could articulate what the decay looked like and felt like. But after hours, I couldn't put it into words and articulate it well. Because saying it was zombie-like or skeletal or undead-like decay just doesn't do it justice. I've never seen a horror movie or artwork or even real-life rotting corpses in any shape, form, or fashion that would even remotely compare to what I saw and felt when I saw an actual rogue dragon. They are not pretty. They are, it's it may be one of the most horrific things I've felt and seen in my career, in my life, period. And that includes when I path worked through the cliff off. So whether it be in the infernal realms, the cliff off, it doesn't matter. Right now in my brain, the only thing I can pull up as the worst thing really kind of comes down to these rogue dragons. These are no joke at all. Another question I get a lot, which comes up, can you work with these rogue dragons? Why would a magician work with rogue dragons? Well, for the second one, I have no freaking clue. There is literally no benefit to working with a rogue dragon that a magician would have unless they want to make an enemy of all other dragons. Seriously, to attempt to work with one rogue dragon, to work with them, you have to literally work against the multiversal balance, deliberately, directly, and dangerously and destructively. That will immediately mark you as an enemy of the dragons and potentially all the dragons' allies, which that in and of itself is terrifying, being an enemy of dragons. Secondly, though, when we consider we haven't found a type of entity that dragons don't work with, that would essentially mean if you ended up an enemy of their allies, you done pissed everyone off. Not just the dragons, everyone, angels and demons and deities and everyone out there you can think of, you done went and pissed them off. I'll openly admit I enjoy pissing people off in my life from time to time. Even I don't want to do that though. That's a little too far. You know what I mean? But yeah. So there would be no benefit to it. And could you work with them? Well, I don't know. I don't know. I have asked a few questions and I have tried to get some answers, and I have searched the libraries within the Draconic realm. I have not been able to find anything that would directly state 100% you can't work with them. You know, I know that it would mark you as an enemy. And there is mentions of magicians who would seek to do so. So I'm going to guess that it would theoretically be possible to work with them, but I also can't find anything beneficial in working with them. However, in my research, I decided, well, we got the draconic information we're finding. We got we got this viewpoint, but we all know old Drake hears about different viewpoints, right? So I decided to check out different viewpoints, and I did a little check-in with different entities. I checked with Odin and Freya. They've made it very clear that anyone who was associated with Rogue Dragons, the Norse, the Vanir, the Jotuns, would not work with. They wouldn't work with. And I was like, okay. My next question was, well, what about Cert? Bring her to the end time. Cert, that fire time. He's like, no. Cert's purpose deals within that balance too. So Cert won't do it either. So Beans and Muspelheim won't do it. Okay. Well, so that basically covers the Norse pantheon. I did ask if it was any in the 9 realms, and I was like, no, none in the 9 realms. Crap. Okay, moving on. I went and spoke with the Fae Queens. That was practically laughable. They seemed insulted I even asked the question. So no, Guardian Dragon or Rogue Dragons, off the table with the Fae. Forget it. So then I was like, okay, we got that. Let's go Infernal, right? Let's be honest. That's where people think these like rogue things are going to go to and whatnot. They're going to go all infernal and devilly and all that. So there I went. I went and I spoke with Azazel. I spoke with Lilith. I spoke with Nama. I spoke with Beelzebub. I spoke with Belial. Did I say Azazel? I think I said Azazel already, but I spoke with him. I spoke with Adam Belial. I spoke with Lucifer. And many, many, many others. And all of them gave me the same thing. They viewed these dragons, these rogue dragons, as absolute blights and enemies. So even in the infernal realms, I couldn't find someone who was even, neutral. Like at this point, I'm just looking for neutral. Like I don't give a shit. But I couldn't find it. I could not find it. Could not. And I did search into other pantheons. I went Greek, spoke with Zeus, Hades, Poseidon, Hera, Hermes. Again, same things. I'm just listing off the ones I can remember right off the top of my head because I went through basically a giant checklist for each of these pantheons. And I even bit the bullet. Y'all know I don't work a lot with the Egyptian deities. I really don't like most of them, but a few of them I do get along with. So, starting with the ones I get along with, I popped over there to ask some questions. Same thing. They didn't like them at all. So I decided, let's check Shiva. She got that whole destroyer aspect going on. Nope. Or he. No. So even in the Hindu side, when I'm, the few Hindu entities I've worked with, and know well enough that I felt comfortable approaching them. Because this is an emotional conversation for me. I'm not comfortable getting all teary-eyed and emotional and depressed. And it may be showing because I'm having trouble communicating. I'm not getting you guys a good eye contact here, and I apologize. I'm trying to be strong. And it's, I know it's okay to cry. So don't post in the comments, Greg, it's okay for him. I know it's okay for a man to cry. I get that. It's just I don't like doing it. I don't like tomatoes. I don't eat tomatoes. You know what I mean? So I just don't like doing it. I find other ways to express my emotions usually, but I also know there's times you just got to bite the bullet, and that's what we're trying to do here. So this is an awkward video for me. I do apologize because it is, technically we've talked about what they are, but we're going into some context here. Even in the Egyptian pantheon, the Hindu pantheon, couldn't find anything. Poked around in some, like the Japanese religious lore pantheon and stuff, entities over there, speaking with other magicians, entities they're in contact with. In all these years, we've found nothing. And that is a very, 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 very interesting concept for me to think that there is an entity or type or a blight or something that's gone wrong. That, as far as we can tell, the whole multiverse is like, that's not good. That's bad. We're not going to support that. Whereas it's like the whole multiverse does stand up and support against such a thing. So that sort of unity is a little heartwarming, I guess you could say. But that, of course, naturally did lead me to that thought, that thing, that shapeless, formless, unnamed thing that Conway talked about. And that, honestly, I wish I had more to go into on that, but at the same time, that's where my questions went. And I'm still diving into it. I have a lot of information on it now. It's not like I don't. I've been at this for several years, obviously. Many, many years. But I don't know if I'm ready to articulate that just yet, or how I would articulate that, because I don't really know how to even begin to phrase it up at this point and what it may be. So we'll save that for another video. But I will say this. For all the things through Conway's works that have been shot down, debunked, or proven by her own words that she had to alter because of publishers or whatnot, or alter just because of the way things were written within magical practices at the time. Okay. I always found it interesting that this one is one that no one ever really approached, no one ever touched on, no one ever did anything about, never got really shot down. I've seen a lot of people gloss over it. It's like, everybody needs a villain in the story, that kind of thing. Or someone even, accuses it of being a representation of something else from another practice. And everyone said that was such a surety. I foolishly and ignorantly was like, yeah, that makes sense. But in my path working, am I working with the dragons and them laying out in their teachings and everything, which are teachings that they're now allowing me to share with you all through Dragon Magic 101 and 102, and hopefully in the near future 103, as more and more people complete 102, and just here on this channel with videos like this. I came to realize that these rogue dragons are a real thing and a real issue. And they're not only what viewed as a danger to the multiversal balance. Dragons view them as a danger to themselves, in a way. Because the death of any soul, the true absolute destruction of a soul into absolute nothingness. This is something that you you cannot recover from. You cannot reincarnate from. You cease to be. And many magicians even think you cease to be past, present, and future. So not only is you're gone into oblivion, never to exist now or future, but everything that you ever did could potentially be erased. Something to think on there. A little scary thought, but something to think on. And then you consider that to an entity like a dragon, an entity so important to the multiversal balance and maintaining everything that we know as reality. First off, what happens if there are never any new souls? Numbers become limited. That becomes a problem. And then what happens if, which I was able to confirm, when that balance maintains. So if one soul finds oblivion, there will be a brand new young soul, but it's young. All that experience is lost. All that knowledge is lost. All that wisdom is lost, never to be recovered. That's sad. There's no way around it. Young soul does not necessarily replace old soul. Does not do it. It maintains an energetic balance, but there's a lot that is still lost, and that should always be mourned. But let's say these other magicians who theorize that when soul death occurs, that everything you ever did also is erased. What would happen if that ripple effect spiraling backwards caused some catastrophic problems? I've not been able to prove or disprove those theories or comments. I've not had the time to dive into it fully. So I can't say. I can't say at this time. Maybe in the future, hopefully near future, I'll have more to say on that one. But I don't at this time. This one's more on the Roge Dragons. But I'm hoping this video has shown you a bit what Roge Dragons are, why dragons view them in the way they do, why they view them so dangerously. They don't hate them. They don't hate them. Let me make that very clear. They don't hate them. If they hated them, they wouldn't try to stop them. They wouldn't even try to put them down, because ultimately the problem solves itself. It burns itself out into oblivion. No, they don't hate them. To the dragons, a rogue dragon is a very, very sad thing. It is something to be mourned. It is a terrible sight. It is a terrible thing. But they do not hate them. In fact, every action they take is due to a commitment to fellowship, to their flights, to the dragons, to the multiversal balance, and to the love and balance of all those things. And they seek to preserve it. They seek to rebalance it. They seek to bring it back from the precipice. And that is often the hardest thing to do. Anyone who's ever struggled with any issue, whether it be addiction, weight loss, there's all kinds of things that we do bad for ourselves that can be changed. Hoarding, clutter bugs, lack of cleaning, the list can go on. We can figure something. Everyone has something. They're hard to change. And I'm not making light of addiction. I know I put addiction in there next to hoarder and clutter bug. I'm not making light of addiction. I ain't. But If it is that hard for us to break things in the physical, imagine how hard it would be to rehabilitate an entity whose very being, their very presence, their very existence is based upon that balance. But something caused them to go and break and snap and go cuckoo, cuckoo. And part of me's got the question, the ponderance. And as I'm exploring the rituals and the workings I'm doing now, one of the questions I hope to answer: why do they go rogue? What is causing it? What makes them go rogue? Does anyone know? Because so far, the dragons have not said. I've had a few magicians claim they knew, and a few magicians have gave me claims. And I looked into it. So far, they've all fallen flat, unfortunately. But I'll keep searching. Anyways, I hope this has helped a little to answer some of these questions, hopefully. And if anything, do not work with these dragons. You do not want to be an enemy of dragons, but to work with a rogue dragon would be to label yourself as such. A willing enemy, too, because you chose to work with these things. If you ever ran into one. Now, some of you actually, before we go, may wonder, Drake, what happens if one of these things shows up in my life? Cool thing is, they cannot approach the material realm. They cannot. So as far as here in the material realm, we ain't got to worry about these rogue dragons. The dragons and many of their allies have made sure that the rogue dragons cannot access the material realm. They have. In fact, one dragon that is assigned to watch over the material realm as we know it, their entire shtick is part of this. I mean, that is one of their main prerogatives. So between that and there's several actual, the Fae help, the Norse, there's a lot of group help that keeps rogue dragons out of the material realm. They seriously, they can't enter. They just cannot enter. So we don't have to worry about them here. Okay, we don't have to worry about them here. But if you're out there astral traveling or soul traveling through different planes and whatnot, your best bet, just leave. Just get out of there. There are very few exceptions to that statement. Just leave. It would be nice of you to perhaps, if you work with one of the Norse gods or you are a dragon magic practitioner, well, if you're a dragon magic practitioner, your guardian or co will be there with you, in which case they'll give the heads up, and so that the individuals capable of bringing this solution under control will be there. But yeah, from a human perspective, a mage's perspective, I would recommend to anyone who sees them not approach them, to leave, to avoid the area, get out of there, come back to the material realm. And that should be your standard response. There is a point in 103 where I would probably tell a student that it is at this point you don't have to necessarily use tuck tail and get out of there tactic. But until that point, the responsible response I have to give, that sounds weird, that I have to give as a teacher, as a mage, as someone who has spent so much time with dragons, is don't mess with them. Get the hell out of there. Come home, relax, have some coffee, forget about it. Okay? All right, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed this video as much as you can. I know this is a heavy discussion and topic, or at least it is for me. So hopefully it was informative. I doubt it was enjoyable, but hopefully it was informative. and has helped to answer many of y'all's questions on these Rogue Dragons as best I could with what I have. Hopefully I articulated it well enough, considering that it is a depressing topic for me. But do remember to check us out over at workingdragonmystic.com if you're interested in Dragon Magic 101 and 102. We also have meditation classes over there, as well as a tarot class. More classes coming. And you know, if you're interested in supporting the channel, helping us out, check out the merch. It's a great way to support the channel, or help support us by becoming a channel or a Patreon member. You get several exclusive perks depending on your tier. We do you know, some member and Patreon only content, so we're trying to get more of that coming. We've been a little slow on it because we've been so busy with so many different things and trying to get things developed, but it is still a great way to support the channel. Because the channel, we're a small channel, we need all the support we can get. You know what I mean? Things are hard this time. If nothing else, though, just hit that like button. Maybe share it on your social media. Get the word around that we're here, doing what we can to help people. That in its own way will help support the channel. And thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. And hopefully I didn't depress anybody too much with this particular one. And I tell you what, I'm going to go have myself a hot cup of coffee and a smile. And I recommend y'all pop up and go do something fun if you can do it. Okay. And I'll try to make sure the next video is a little bit more fun. All right. Till next time, I'm Drake. This has been Working Dragon Mystic. Take care. Bye-bye.